The Great Hall of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. Thousands of alien beings sat in their seats, but no one made a sound. The air felt heavy with fear and worry. At the center of the room, a human man stood alone. Commander Deho looked tired. His dark hair was getting gray at the sides, and his face showed the weight of bad news. He wore the blue uniform of the Human Defense Fleet. The small flags on his chest told everyone he had fought in many battles. Above his head, bright pictures showed in the air. They were images from a planet far away. The pictures showed burned cities, empty streets, and buildings turned to dust. This was what remained of New Sol Colony on Kepler 442b. 3 million humans are dead, Deho said. His voice was calm, but everyone could hear the pain in it. The Vorthok attacked without warning. They destroyed everything. Men, women, children. No one was spared. A low sound came from the alien crowd. Some made clicking noises, others hissed. The fear was growing stronger. In the front row, Ambassador Yuna sat very still. She was an older woman with silver hair tied back in a neat way. Her hands were folded in her lap. She did not look angry. She did not look sad. She just watched and listened. A tall, thin creature with green skin stood up. This was Speaker Vex from the Mantis Coalition. His forearms moved as he talked. This is very bad news. The Vorthok have made a terrible mistake. They do not know what they have done. They have awakened human anger, said another voice. This came from General Thok of the Sauron Empire. He looked like a large lizard walking on 2 legs. His yellow eyes glowed as he spoke. We have all heard the stories. We know what humans do when they are angry. More voices joined in. The hall filled with worried talk about human wars. They spoke of planets turned to glass. They told stories of human soldiers who never gave up, never stopped fighting. They remembered the Great War of Titan, where humans fought for 7 years, without rest. Humans do not forgive, said a voice like singing crystal. This was Elder Prism from the Crystal People. When someone hurts them, they strike back 10 times harder. Their history is written in blood, added another speaker. Earth has seen thousands of wars. They know how to destroy better than any race in the galaxy. The fear in the room grew thicker. Some aliens started to leave their seats. They wanted to get away from human space before the storm began. An old creature with many tentacles spoke up. His name was Ancient Krell from the Deep Ones. I have lived for 800 years. I have seen many wars, but human anger is different. It burns like a star. It does not stop until everything is ash. Commander Deho listened to all this talk. He did not try to stop them. He knew what other races thought about humans. He knew the stories they told their children about human warriors. The pictures above his head changed. Now they showed Vorthok. Ships moving through space. The insect-like aliens had big ships that looked like metal bugs. Their weapons could cut through anything. They had destroyed the human colony in just 1 day. The Vorthok thought we were weak, Deho continued. They saw our farms and schools. They saw our children playing in parks. They thought we would be easy to defeat. A small furry creature called out from the back, but they were wrong. Now, they will pay the price. Yes, agreed many voices. The humans will make them suffer. Human revenge is swift and terrible, said someone else. Ambassador Yuna finally stood up. The hall became quiet again. Everyone knew she spoke for all humans in the galaxy. What she said next would be very important. She was not a tall woman, but she seemed to fill the room with her presence. Her gray eyes looked at each group of aliens. When she spoke, her voice was soft but clear. You think you know us, she said. You have heard stories about human anger. You believe we are creatures of rage and violence. The aliens nodded. This was exactly what they thought. You speak of our wars as if they define us. You remember our battles and think that is all we are. She walked slowly to the center of the hall. Her steps made small sounds on the metal floor. Yes, we have fought many wars. Yes, we know how to destroy our enemies. When we are pushed too far, we can be terrible in our anger. The aliens shifted in their seats. This was what they expected to hear. But you misunderstand us completely, Yuna said. Her voice became even softer, but somehow it seemed more dangerous than any shout. You think our anger is what you should fear. She stopped walking and looked up at all the watching faces. You are wrong. A chill seemed to fill the great hall. Something in her tone made everyone uncomfortable. This was not what they expected. Our anger burns bright, but it burns fast. Anger is just one emotion among many. But there is something else inside us. Something deeper. Something that has shaped every choice we have ever made. The aliens waited. They did not understand where this was going. You should not fear our anger, Yuna said, with a small smile that somehow looked scary. You should fear our mercy. Confused. Sounds came from the crowd. Mercy was not dangerous. Mercy was weakness. Every alien knew this. 3 million of our people are dead, she continued. The Vorthik killed them without thought. They destroyed homes, schools, hospitals. They showed no mercy to anyone. She paused and looked directly at the area where the Vorthik delegates usually sat. They were not there today. They were hiding in their ships, waiting for human revenge. And now you expect us to respond with equal cruelty. You expect us to kill 3 million of theirs. You expect us to burn their worlds and scatter their ashes across space. The aliens nodded again. This was exactly what they expected. But that is not who we are, Yuna said. That is not what we will do. The hall erupted in confused voices. If humans would not seek revenge, what would they do? How would they respond to such a terrible attack? Ambassador Yuna raised her hand, and the voices became quiet. You will see soon enough, she said. The human defense fleet is already moving. Our ships are heading toward Vorthik space. But what they carry is not what you expect. She turned and began to walk toward the exit. You feared our anger, and perhaps you were right to do so. But it is our mercy that will change everything. It is our mercy that will shake the foundations of this galaxy. As she reached the door, she stopped and looked back one more time. And when you see what we are truly capable of, even the gods themselves will bow their heads. The great hall fell silent as the human ambassador left. The aliens sat in their seats, more confused and worried than before. They had prepared for human anger. They knew how to handle rage and violence, but mercy? That was something they had never seen used as a weapon, and that terrified them more than any threat of war ever could. 3 days had passed since the terrible news reached the Galactic Council. 3 days since the Vorthik had killed 3 million humans on New Sol Colony. The galaxy held its breath and waited for the storm to begin, across dozens of star systems. Alien governments prepared for war. They moved their fleets away from human space. They built more weapons and strengthened their defenses. Everyone knew that human anger was coming, and it would be terrible to see. The Vorthik themselves had gone into hiding. Their Queen Mother had pulled all their ships back to their home worlds. They built shields around their planets and waited for death to come from the stars. But the humans were already moving. Captain Sun Wu stood on the bridge of his great warship. The ship was called Compassion's Edge, and it was one of the largest vessels in the human defense fleet. Around him, his crew worked at their stations, preparing for what everyone thought would be the greatest battle of their lives. Captain, we are ready to drop out of hyperspace, said Navigator Yunji from her position at the front of the bridge. The Vorthik homeworld is just ahead. Sun Wu nodded. He was a tall man with kind eyes, but his face looked serious today. He had fought in many battles, but this one felt different. This one would decide what kind of people humans really were. All ships, prepare for normal space, he said into his communicator. Behind his ship, 47 other human vessels waited for his command. They were enough to destroy a dozen worlds. The stars around them changed as they dropped out of hyperspace. Before them hung a beautiful blue and green planet. It was larger than Earth, with 2 bright suns shining down on it. This was Vorthek Prime, home to over 40 billion insect-like beings. Captain, I am reading massive population centers across the planet, reported Science Officer Byung-ho. Their cities are built like giant hives. Most of their people live underground. Lieutenant Hai-jin looked up from her weapons station. She was young but very skilled at her job. Sir, we have target locks on all major population centers. Their defenses are down. They are not even trying to fight us. Sun Wu studied the planet below. He could see the metal towers of the hive cities rising up from the ground like silver trees. In those cities lived billions of beings who had done nothing wrong. Only their leaders had decided to attack the human colony. Captain, we are receiving a transmission from the planet, said Communications Officer Min-ho. It is from their Queen Mother. Put it on screen, Sun Wu ordered. The main display filled with the image of a creature that looked like a giant praying mantis. Her compound eyes reflected the light from dozens of angles, and her 4 arms moved nervously as she spoke. This was Queen Mother Sklix, ruler of all Vorthek. Human commanders, she said through her translation device. We know why you have come. We know what we have done. We accept our fate. We are ready for your anger. Her voice shook with fear. Behind her, Sun Wu could see other Vorthek leaders. They all looked terrified. We have called back all our fleets. The Queen Mother continued. We will not fight you. We know we cannot win against human rage. Please ... When you destroy us, remember that our children did not choose this war. The transmission showed young Vorthek in the background. They were much smaller than the adults, with softer features and brighter colors. They clung to their parents, not understanding why everyone was so scared. Lieutenant Hai-jin checked her weapons again. Captain, all weapons are ready. We can glass the entire planet in less than 10 minutes. Should I begin the attack? Sun Wu looked at the planet again. 40 billion lives. 40 billion beings who would die if he gave the order. Their military had attacked his people, but most of them were just trying to live their lives in peace. The bridge was very quiet. Every officer waited for the command they all expected. This was how wars worked. When someone attacked you, you attacked them back. When they killed your people, you killed theirs. But Sun Wu remembered the words of Ambassador Yuna back at the Galactic Council. She had said something about mercy being more powerful than anger. At the time, he had not understood what she meant. Now, looking down at a planet full of frightened beings, he began to see. Stand down all weapons, he said quietly. The bridge crew looked at him in shock. Lieutenant Hai-jin blinked several times. Sir, did you say stand down? You heard me correctly, Sun Wu said more loudly. Stand down all weapons. Power down the targeting systems. But Captain, said Science Officer Byung-ho, they killed 3 million of our people. They destroyed an entire colony. They deserve to pay for what they did. Sun Wu turned to face his crew. These were good people who had lost friends and family. In the attack, they wanted justice. They wanted revenge. But he could see something else in their eyes too. He could see doubt. Yes, they killed our people, he said. Yes, they destroyed our colony. And yes, they deserve to be punished for what they did. The crew nodded. This was what they wanted to hear. But look at that planet, Sun Wu continued. Look at those children. Look at those families. Did they attack us? Did they choose to start this war? The crew looked at the screen, where young Vorthek still clung to their parents. If we destroy this planet, we become exactly what they think we are. We become the monsters from their stories. We prove that humans are nothing but anger and violence. He walked to the center of the bridge and looked at each of his officers. But we are more than that. We are better than that. We have something that no other race in this galaxy has ever seen before. What is that, sir? Asked Navigator Yunji. We have the power to choose mercy over revenge. We have the strength to help instead of hurt. We have the wisdom to heal instead of destroy. Communications. Officer Minho looked confused. But sir, what about justice? What about making them pay for what they did? Sun Wu smiled for the first time in days. Justice does not always mean death, Minho. Sometimes justice means showing someone a better way to live. He turned back to the planet and opened a communication channel. Queen Mother Sklix, this is Captain Sun Wu of the Human Defense Fleet. We have received your message. The alien leader appeared on screen again, still shaking with fear. We did not come here to destroy you, Sun Wu said. We came here to help you. The Queen Mother's compound eyes widened in confusion. Help us? But we are your enemies. We killed your people. Yes, you did, Sun Wu replied, and that was wrong. But killing you will not bring our people back. It will only create more death, more pain, more hatred. He paused and looked directly at the camera. Instead, we offer you something different. We offer you a chance to learn, a chance to grow, a chance to become better than you were. I do not understand, the Queen Mother said. You will, Sun Wu promised. Lieutenant He Jin, contact the medical ships. Tell them to prepare for humanitarian aid operations. Science Officer Byung-ho, scan the planet for areas that need help. Food, water, medicine, shelter. His crew stared at him in amazement, but they began to follow his orders. All ships, this is Captain Sun Wu. Begin Operation Healing Hand. We are going to show this galaxy what humans are really made of. As the human fleet moved into orbit around the Vorthok homeworld, word of their actions began to spread across the galaxy. Alien governments that had been preparing for war suddenly found themselves questioning everything they thought they knew about humanity. The humans had not come for revenge. They had come with open hands and hearts full of compassion, and that scared the galaxy more than any weapon ever could. News traveled fast across the galaxy. Within hours, every major government knew what the humans had done. Instead of revenge, they had chosen mercy. Instead of destruction, they had brought help. The reaction was unlike anything ever seen before. On the Crystal homeworld, Elder Prism called an emergency meeting. The crystal beings gathered in their great hall, their bodies glowing with confused light patterns. This makes no sense, Elder Prism said, his voice ringing like broken glass. Species do not help their enemies. It goes against all logic. Perhaps it is a trick, suggested another crystal being. Perhaps they plan to make the Vorthok trust them, then strike. But deep down, they all knew this was not true. The humans had brought medical supplies, food, and engineers. No trick required such effort. On Vorthok Prime, Dr. So Young worked in a medical tent that had been set up in the ruins of Hive City. 7. She was a small woman with gentle hands and a kind smile. Around her, Vorthok children waited in line for treatment. The young Vorthok were different from the adults. They were smaller, with softer shells and brighter colors. Their compound eyes were larger, making them look almost cute. When Dr. So Young first saw them, she was reminded of the children back on New Soul Colony who would never grow up. But instead of anger, she felt only sadness for these young ones who had done nothing wrong. Dr. Human, said a small voice. Dr. So Young looked down to see a young Vorthok looking up at her. The child was thin and weak, probably from not eating enough. Why do you help us? We are the bad ones. We hurt your people. Dr. So Young knelt down so she was at the same level as the child. What is your name, little one? I am called Chittering of Joy, the young Vorthok replied. But I have not felt joy for many days. Well, Chittering of Joy, you are not bad. You did not hurt anyone. You are just a child who needs help, and helping children is what we do." She gave the young Vorthik some medicine and a small toy from Earth. It was a simple wooden horse that her own daughter had played with. "This is for you to keep." Chittering of joy held the toy carefully in her 4 small hands. "But I do not understand. Our leaders say humans are angry beings who only know how to fight." "Your leaders were wrong about many things," Dr. So Young said softly. "We do get angry sometimes. But we also know how to love, how to care, and how to forgive." Across the planet, similar scenes were happening everywhere. Human engineers worked alongside Vorthak workers to rebuild damaged cities. Human teachers started schools where Vorthik children could learn new things. Human farmers showed them how to grow food in better ways. Engineer Jinho was working on a water treatment plant in Hive City 3. The Vorthik had built their cities well, but they had never learned how to make clean water for everyone. Many of their people got sick from drinking dirty water. "I still do not understand," said Mandible Sharp, a Vorthik engineer who was helping him. "Why do you work so hard to help us? We are your enemies." Jinho wiped sweat from his forehead and looked at the alien beside him. Mandible Sharp was young for a Vorthik, probably the same age as Jinho himself. His green shell was marked with the symbols of his hive family. "Are you my enemy right now?" Jinho asked. Mandible Sharp looked confused. I do not know. I was told that all humans are enemies." "Well, I am not your enemy," Jinho said with a smile. "Right now, I am just someone trying to help you make clean water for your people. That makes me your friend, does it not?" The Vorthik engineer thought about this for a long moment. "I suppose it does. But why be friends with someone who hurt you?" Jinho stopped working and sat down on a piece of metal. "Can I tell you something about humans, Mandible Sharp?" The alien nodded. "We believe that everyone can change. We believe that people who do bad things can learn to do good things. We believe that enemies can become friends if someone is willing to take the first step. But what if they do not change? What if they hurt you again? Then we will be sad." Jinho said honestly. "But at least we will know that we tried. At least we will know that we chose to be better than our anger." Word of these conversations spread throughout the galaxy. Alien news reporters came to Vorthik Prime to see what was happening. They expected to find humans punishing their enemies. Instead, they found humans teaching, healing, and building. The effect was immediate and powerful. On the Sauron homeworld, General Thok watched the news reports with growing amazement. The reptilian being had fought in hundreds of battles. He had seen every kind of warfare imaginable. But he had never seen anything like this. "General," said one of his officers, "our intelligence suggests that 47 different species have offered to surrender to the humans without fighting." General Thok's yellow eyes grew wider. "Surrender? Without being attacked?" "Yes, sir. They say they do not want to fight beings who are capable of such mercy. They say they would rather be conquered by someone who will help them than defend themselves against someone who will destroy them." The general leaned back in his chair, his scaled hide shifting colors as he thought. In all his years of military service, he had never heard of enemies surrendering because they were treated too well. "This changes everything," he said quietly. "If mercy is more powerful than strength, then everything we know about war is wrong." Back on Vorthik Prime, Fleet Admiral Min Seo coordinated the relief efforts from her flagship. She was a stern woman with sharp eyes and a quick mind. She had been chosen to lead this mission because she was one of the best military commanders in human space. But this was not a military operation anymore. This was something entirely new. "Admiral," her communications officer reported, "we are receiving messages from 17 different Vorthak colonies. They are asking for help with their own problems. Disease, hunger, broken machines. They want to know if we will help them too." Mincio looked out at the planet below, where human and Vorthik worked side by side. Send word to Earth. Tell them we need more medical ships, more engineers, more teachers. It looks like we have a lot more work to do. Should I also request? More warships, Admiral. Mincio smiled. I do not think we will need them. It seems that mercy is a much more powerful weapon than any gun we could bring. As news of the human response continued to spread, something unprecedented began to happen across the galaxy. Species that had been enemies for thousands of years started talking to each other. Old wars were put on hold as governments tried to understand what the humans were doing. The Mantis Coalition sent diplomats to speak with their ancient enemies, the Deep Ones. The Crystal People opened communications with the Silicon Collective for the first time in centuries. Everywhere, beings began to wonder if there might be a better way to solve their problems than fighting. But perhaps the most important change was happening in the hearts and minds of individual beings across the galaxy. Alien children watched the news reports and asked their parents why they could not be friends with their enemies. Adult beings began to question the hatred they had been taught since birth. On a small space station near the galactic core, an old being called the Watcher observed everything that was happening. The Watcher was ancient beyond measure and had seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations. But this was something new. The humans had done something that no species in galactic history had ever accomplished. They had turned an act of war into an act of peace. They had transformed their enemies into their friends through nothing but kindness and compassion. And the Watcher began to understand that the galaxy was about to change in ways that no one could have imagined. The age of endless war was ending. The age of mercy had begun, and it had all started with one simple choice: to help instead of hurt, to heal instead of harm, to love instead of hate. The humans had shown the galaxy what true strength looked like, and the galaxy would never be the same. Far beyond the physical universe, in a place where time had no meaning and space was just an idea, something very old and very powerful was watching. It had watched the rise and fall of galaxies. It had seen stars being born and dying. It had observed countless species learn to think, to feel, and to fight. The being called itself the Eternal, though it had been known by many names across many worlds. Some called it a god. Others called it a cosmic force. A few wise beings understood that it was something beyond either of those things. The Eternal existed in all dimensions at once. It could see the past, present, and future as if they were all happening at the same time. It had grown bored with the universe long ago, since everything seemed to follow the same patterns over and over again. Species would develop, they would learn to fight, they would conquer or be conquered. They would rise and fall and be forgotten. Nothing ever really changed. Until now. The Eternal focused its attention on a small blue and green planet orbiting a yellow star. Earth was not special in any physical way. It was just one of billions of worlds that supported life. But the beings that lived there had done something that made the Eternal pay attention for the first time in millions of years. On Vorthik Prime, the transformation continued. Human engineer Qian Su was teaching a group of former Vorthik warriors how to grow food instead of making weapons. The insect-like beings were surprisingly good students, though they struggled with the concept of nurturing life instead of taking it. But why do we need so many different plants? Asked Blade Singer, a warrior who had led raids on dozens of worlds. Her 4 arms moved nervously as she spoke. Would it not be easier to grow just one type that gives us everything we need? Kyung Su smiled as he planted seeds in the rich soil. Diversity makes everything stronger. When you have many different types of plants, they help each other. Some give nutrients to the soil. Others protect against insects. Some taste good, others are good for medicine. Like an army, Blade Singer said, beginning to understand. Each Warrior has different skills, but together they are stronger. Exactly, Kyung-soo agreed. But instead of fighting, they are helping each other live. The Eternal watched this exchange with growing interest. It had seen cooperation before, but never quite like this. The human was not just teaching the Vorthik to grow food. He was teaching them to think in completely new ways. In another part of the planet, teacher Nari was working with young Vorthik in a classroom. The children sat at small desks, their compound eyes focused intently on the picture she was showing them. This is called art, she explained, holding up a painting of a sunset. Humans make pictures and sculptures and music not because we need them to survive, but because they make us happy. A small Vorthik raised one of her forearms. But what is the point of being happy if it does not help you fight better? Nari knelt down beside the child's desk. Being happy is the point, little one. Fighting is something we do when we have to. But happiness is something we choose to feel every day. She showed them how to mix colors and paint pictures of their own. At first, the young Vorthik only painted things they knew: weapons, hive cities, battle scenes. But slowly, they began to paint other things: flowers, sunsets, families. Together, the Eternal observed all of this with a mixture of curiosity and something it had not felt in eons: wonder. These humans were not just helping their former enemies. They were changing them at a fundamental level. They were teaching them to value life, beauty, and joy over conflict and conquest. But the real test was yet to come. At the edge of known space, ancient machines stirred to life. They were called the Devourers, and they had been sleeping for 10,000 years. Each one was the size of a small moon, covered in weapons that could destroy entire solar systems. The Devourers had been created by a race that had died out long ago. Their purpose was simple: consume everything. They ate planets, stars, entire civilizations. They turned matter into energy, energy into more machines, machines into more destruction. They had awakened because they sensed something new in the galaxy. The change that was spreading from Vorthik Prime had reached them somehow, and they were curious about it. The first Devourer moved toward the nearest inhabited system. It was a simple mission: eat everything and move on to the next target. But as it approached the system, it detected something strange. The planets were not trying to hide. They were not building weapons. Instead, they were sending out radio signals. The messages were simple: we welcome you. We want to understand you. We want to help you. The Devourer had never encountered anything like this before. In all its thousands of years of operation, every species had either run away or tried to fight. No one had ever offered to help. The massive machine slowed down and began to analyze the signals more carefully. They were coming from a small blue world where humans had recently established a research station. The humans had detected the Devourer's approach and were trying to communicate with it. Captain Dong Hyun was the leader of the research station. He was a brave man who had volunteered for this dangerous mission. When the sensors showed the Devourer approaching, he knew that everyone on the station was probably going to die. But instead of running or fighting, he did something that no one expected. He put on a spacesuit and flew out to meet the Devourer alone. The Eternal watched this with intense interest. The human was tiny compared to the massive machine, like an ant approaching a mountain. But he showed no fear as he drifted through space toward the ancient weapon. "Hello," Captain Dong Hyun said into his radio, knowing that the Devourer would hear him. "My name is Dong Hyun. I represent the human race. We know who you are, and we know why you are here." The Devourer's weapon systems powered up, ready to destroy this small being. But something made it pause. The human's voice was calm, gentle, almost kind. "We know you are in pain," Dong Hyun continued. "We know you eat because you are dying, not because you want to hurt people. We know that long ago, your creators made you this way because they were afraid. The Devourer's weapons powered down slightly. How could this tiny being know such things? We want to help you find a better way, the human said. We want to help you heal the damage that was done to you. We want to help you become something more than just a weapon. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Devourer hesitated. It had been programmed to consume everything, but it had never been programmed to handle kindness. The Eternal leaned forward, so to speak, watching this unprecedented encounter. The human was offering mercy to a machine that had destroyed countless worlds. It was an act of compassion so pure, so selfless, that even the Eternal was moved by it. We do not fear you, Donghayan said. We pity you. You have been alone for so long, forced to destroy when you could have been creating. But it is not too late to change. It is never too late to choose a better path. The Devourer's central processors worked frantically, trying to understand what was happening. This was not in any of its programming. This was something entirely new. Slowly, carefully, the massive machine began to power down its weapons. For the first time in its existence, it chose not to destroy something. The Eternal watched in amazement as the human and the machine began to communicate. The Devourer was learning that it could choose to help instead of hurt. It was discovering that there were other ways to exist besides endless consumption. Across the galaxy, similar encounters were happening. Everywhere humans went, they brought this same message of hope and compassion. They offered friendship to their enemies, help to those who had hurt them, and mercy to those who deserved punishment. And it was working. The Eternal realized that something fundamental was changing in the universe. These humans were not just another species trying to survive. They were something new, something that had the power to transform everything around them. For the first time in its eternal existence, the cosmic being felt something that could only be described as humility. These small, short-lived creatures had accomplished something that it, with all its power and wisdom, had never even attempted. They had chosen to make the universe a better place, one act of kindness at a time, and the Eternal began to understand that it had something to learn from them. 6 months had passed since the day everything changed. 6 months since humans had chosen mercy over revenge. The galaxy was no longer the same place it had been before. On Earth, President Di Wu stood in the gardens behind her office, looking up at the night sky. The stars looked different now, somehow brighter and more peaceful. Reports came in every day about species that had stopped fighting with each other, about worlds that were sharing resources instead of hoarding them, about beings that were learning to solve problems with words instead of weapons. But tonight, something extraordinary was happening. The sky began to glow with colors that had never been seen before. Streams of light danced between the stars, forming patterns that seemed almost alive. The aurora covered the entire planet, visible even in the brightest daylight. Every person on Earth stopped what they were doing and looked up. Children pointed in wonder. Adults stared in amazement. Scientists scrambled to understand what was happening, but their instruments could not explain the impossible beauty filling the sky. Then a voice spoke, not through radios or speakers, but directly into the minds of every human being on the planet. The voice was ancient and powerful, but also gentle and kind. "People of Earth," the voice said, "I am the Eternal. I have watched your universe since before your sun was born. I have seen the rise and fall of 1,000,000 civilizations, but I have never seen anything like what you have done." President Jiwu felt her heart beating faster. She had heard stories about cosmic beings, about gods, that lived beyond the physical world. But she had never expected to meet one. Across the galaxy, other species also heard the voice of the Eternal. On Vorthok Prime, Queen Mother Sklix and her human friends looked up at their own dancing sky. In the crystal homeworld, the geometric beings pulsed with light as they listened. Even the Devourers, now helping to heal dead worlds instead of destroying living ones, paused in their work to pay attention. I have existed for longer than your species can imagine, the Eternal continued. I have watched stars being born and dying. I have seen galaxies collide and merge. I have observed countless wars, endless suffering, and infinite cycles of violence. The voice paused, and in that silence, every being in the galaxy felt the weight of eternity. I grew tired of watching the same patterns repeat over and over again. Species would develop, learn to fight, conquer, or be conquered, rise and fall, and be forgotten. Nothing ever really changed. Nothing ever got better. President Ji-woo found herself speaking, though she was not sure if the Eternal could hear her. But something did change, didn't it? Yes, the voice replied, and she could hear something like joy in it. You changed everything. The aurora above Earth grew brighter, and slowly, a shape began to form in the dancing lights. It was difficult to describe, something that existed in more dimensions than human eyes could see. But it felt like the presence of something vast, and wonderful, and impossibly old. Your species faced the same choice that every species faces, the Eternal said. When your enemies hurt you, you could have hurt them back. When they killed your people, you could have killed theirs. When they showed you hatred, you could have shown them hatred in return. On Vorthek Prime, Dr. So-young was treating a patient. When the voice began to speak, she looked up to see chittering of joy, the young Vorthek she had helped months ago. The child was now healthy and strong, and she had brought her own children to meet the human doctor who had shown her such kindness. But you chose differently, the Eternal continued. You chose to show mercy to those who had shown you none. You chose to help those who had hurt you. You chose to love those who had hated you. The presence in the sky began to change, becoming more solid, more real. Across the galaxy, beings watched in wonder as the Eternal manifested physically for the first time in recorded history. I have seen mercy before, the voice said. Brief moments of weakness that usually led to a species extinction. I have seen beings try to make peace, only to be destroyed by their enemies. I expected the same thing to happen to you. Engineer Jinho was working with his Vorthik friend Mandible Sharp when the sky lit up. They had been building a new school, where children from both species could learn together. As they listened to the Eternal's words, they put their arms around each other's shoulders, human and alien united in friendship. But your mercy was different, the Eternal said. It was not weakness. It was the strongest thing I have ever witnessed. It was strategic, purposeful, and more powerful than any weapon ever created. The shape in the sky grew more defined. It seemed to be made of light and consciousness, constantly shifting, but always beautiful. Those who looked at it saw different things. Some saw patterns of incredible complexity. Others saw simple symbols of peace and love. You did not just forgive your enemies, the voice continued. You transformed them. You turned warriors into farmers, destroyers into builders, haters into friends. You showed them that there was a better way to live. Captain Sunwoo stood on the bridge of his ship, which was now orbiting a former Vorthek military world that had been converted into a center for learning and healing. His crew, both human and alien, listened together as the Eternal spoke. When the Devourers awakened, I expected them to consume everything in their path, the voice said. They had done so for 10,000 years. But one of your kind, Captain Dong Hayan, did something that even I did not think was possible. Captain Dong Hayan was at that moment working alongside a devourer that had chosen to become a builder instead of a destroyer. The massive machine was using its incredible power to terraform dead worlds, bringing life to places that had been barren. For millennia, he offered compassion to a machine that had destroyed countless civilizations, the Eternal said. He saw pain where others saw only evil. He offered healing where others would have offered only death. The presence in the sky began to move, and beings across the galaxy realized that something unprecedented was happening. The Eternal, this cosmic being that had existed since the beginning of time, was bowing. "I have existed for eons," the voice said, now filled with humility. "I have power beyond your understanding. I can create stars, destroy galaxies, reshape the very fabric of reality itself." President Jiwoo watched in amazement as the Aurora form bent forward, like a person showing respect. "But in all my eternal existence, I have never accomplished what you have done in just 6 months," the Eternal continued. "You have brought peace to a galaxy that has known only war. You have turned enemies into friends. You have shown that love is stronger than hate, that mercy is more powerful than vengeance." Teacher Nari was in her classroom with both human and Vorthic children when the Eternal's words reached them. The children, who had once been taught that the other species was their enemy, now played together, learned together, and dreamed together of a better future. "True power," the Eternal said, "is not the ability to destroy your enemies. True power is the ability to turn your enemies into friends. True wisdom is not knowing how to win wars, but knowing how to make wars unnecessary." The cosmic being's bow deepened, and every psychic species in the galaxy felt waves of respect and admiration flowing from the ancient consciousness. "You have shown mercy to those who deserved only justice," the voice continued. "You have given love to those who had shown you only hatred. You have brought hope to a universe that had forgotten what hope looked like." The aurora began to fade, but the presence remained. The Eternal had one more thing to say. "I have watched the rise and fall of countless civilizations, but I have never seen one like yours. You did not conquer the galaxy through strength or fear. You conquered it through compassion. You did not rule through power, but through love." As the light began to disappear, the final words of the Eternal echoed across every world where intelligent life existed. "The galaxy feared your anger, and perhaps they were right to do so. Your capacity for destruction is indeed terrible to behold. But it is your mercy that has changed everything. It is your compassion that has accomplished what all the weapons in the universe never could. It is your love that has brought peace to a violent universe." The presence paused one final time, and when it spoke again, its voice carried the weight of absolute truth. "And that is why even gods bow their heads before you." As the Eternal faded back into the dimensions beyond physical reality, the galaxy was left forever changed. The aurora disappeared from Earth's sky, but the memory of what had happened would live on for all time. In the years that followed, the story would be told on countless worlds in countless different languages. Children would learn about the day when humanity chose mercy over revenge, when they turned their greatest enemies into their closest friends, when they showed the universe that love was stronger than hate. The Galactic Council was disbanded, not because of war, but because it was no longer needed. Species that had fought for thousands of years now worked together to solve problems and share knowledge. The Vorthak became some of humanity's closest allies. Their natural efficiency combined with human creativity to build wonders that neither could have achieved alone. The Devourers, once the galaxy's greatest threat, became its greatest protectors. They used their incredible power to heal damaged worlds, to create new homes for displaced populations, and to defend peaceful species from any who would threaten them. Ambassador Yune, now retired, lived quietly on a small farm on New Earth Colony. She often sat in her garden in the evenings, watching the stars and remembering the day when everything changed. Sometimes visitors would come to hear her tell the story of how humanity had chosen mercy over anger. "Were you not afraid?" a young journalist asked her one day. "When you stood before the Galactic Council and told them that mercy was more powerful than anger, were you not afraid that you were wrong?" Yuna smiled, the same gentle smile that had unsettled so many aliens all those years ago. "I was terrified," she admitted. "But I knew something that they did not understand." "What was that?" "That being afraid does not mean you cannot be brave. That being hurt does not mean you have to hurt others. That being human means always having the choice to be better than your worst moments. The journalist wrote down her words carefully. And do you think humanity will always make the right choice? Yuna looked up at the stars where human ships worked alongside alien vessels to explore new worlds and spread the message of peace and cooperation. No, she said honestly. We will make mistakes. We will sometimes choose anger over mercy, fear over love. We are not perfect. She paused and smiled again. But we will keep trying. And that, perhaps, is what makes us human. As the years passed, the galaxy continued to change. New species were discovered and welcomed with open arms. Old conflicts were resolved through dialogue and understanding. Children grew up in a universe where cooperation was normal and war was just something from history books. And somewhere beyond the physical dimensions, the Eternal continued to watch, no longer bored but filled with wonder at what these remarkable beings would do next. The age of endless war was over. The age of mercy had begun. And it all started with one simple choice: to help instead of hurt, to heal instead of harm, to show compassion instead of seek revenge. The humans had proven that the greatest strength was not in the power to destroy, but in the wisdom to choose mercy. They had shown that even in the darkest moments, there was always a choice to be better. They had feared human anger, and perhaps they were right to do so. But it was human mercy that made even gods bow their heads. And the galaxy would never be the same.